everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Sweet Spot. This is your host, Ryan Embry. We are here for the second season of our independent hotel show series. That means we are gearing up, if you can believe it, for the independent hotel show here in September in Miami Beach. I am so excited and equally excited to bring in a familiar voice. We had her on the podcast just a couple months ago in New York City. Genna Panagopoulos, VP Development, North America, Minor Hotels. Genna, welcome back to the Sweet Spot.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, excited to have you. We were talking off camera. Typically, I usually do the virtual interview before meeting in person. So this is, a little bit more comfortable here virtually. Back in, I think you're in Atlanta. I'm here in our TMG headquarters in Orlando. But second time on the Sweet Spot, we really didn't get into your hospitality background, kind of a tradition here. Want to introduce you to our audience a little bit more intimately and in depth. Talk to us a little bit about your background in hospitality and the journey that led you to Minor Hotels.
Yeah. Well, it starts a long time ago because I grew up in the hospitality industry. Typical Greek immigrant story. My father came here with just a few dollars in his pocket and ended up building up a pretty successful restaurant business in Detroit. So if you ever are in Detroit, if you say Jimmy the Greek, people will know him. But I obviously grew up in Michigan, went to Michigan State, really, and started studying hospitality with the intent of taking over the restaurant business. And then I did an internship for my father and realized I did not love it as much as he did. And so I ended up falling into the hotel space and specifically hotel investment, real estate development, and have just fallen in love ever since. I started my career at Davidson Hotels and Resorts back when they were in Memphis, actually, on their business development team. And then they moved to Atlanta, ironically, next to IHG's headquarters. So I was with Davidson for a few years, hopped on over to IHG where I was for 10 years, did everything from feasibility to business development to even brand, which is a little bit unique. And I don't want to undermine that because I had a lot of people say at the time, why would a developer ever go to brands? Like you're where you want to be. But for me, it was so critical to kind of unlocking new opportunities in the future because the skills I gained in a year and a half on the team were, just the role that I'm in now is super helpful because it's kind of like wearing two different hats, right? A creative versus a mathematician. So anyways, I was there at IHG for 10 years. And then this opportunity at Minor came up last summer, and I was so ready and excited to take on like a new challenge, and I thought that it'd be a really fun and exciting new endeavor for me with this combination of my background. So it's exciting. Minor's been super supportive, and it's a little weird to go from working in an office with thousands of colleagues to being the one of one in an entire continent, but it's been great so far.
Yeah, and what a unique opportunity. We're going to talk about that here in a moment because I think it's absolutely fascinating. But your story is very familiar. I mean, we hear all the time from our guests. A lot of them start in that F&B kind of space and then transition over to the hospitality side, but super comprehensive skill set, which I'm sure has set you up for success in your role at Minor Hotels. Now, we met face-to-face at NYU, IHIF. We're just a couple weeks removed. I call this kind of takeaway season where everybody's on LinkedIn kind of frantically typing their takeaways and what they felt about the state of the industry right now. What we're looking back on New York City, maybe you could start kind of from a zoomed-in version of how that event for you, and then maybe back up with an industry lens on some of the biggest takeaways from your time at New York City.
Yeah. So from a Minor perspective, we had a really successful conference. So we had tons of meetings while we were there, really good ones too, on some deals that we're hopefully perpetuating. And then, we'll be announcing maybe by the Independent Boutique Hotel Show. But the energy was very live. The excitement for Minor Hotels was very visceral. People, I think, hoteliers are really looking for brands that understand their position And because Minor is, I always describe it as an owner first, then an operator, now a brand, right? And we still own or lease a vast majority of our portfolio. So we know what it's like to be in their shoes, quite honestly. So it was a successful, like I said, the energy was there. It's very validating to know that a lot of our marketing is working, and all of the word of mouth and the fact that we're out there. I'm having to educate people less and less with every conference about who we are. So that's great. Zooming out on an industry lens, I think, even just looking at beginning of the year to NYU IHIF, the sentiment is very different, right? At the beginning of the year, there was so much excitement over the World Cup. You and I spoke about that at NYU. But and it's obviously been tempered quite a bit. The K economy is still happening. We're seeing luxury. The rates of the projects that I'm working on, I'm just shocked at how high they are, and how well the competitors are doing in the upper luxury space. It's really fascinating. So I'm definitely seeing that as well. But the sentiment and appetite to grow is definitely there. People are still looking to place equity, not huge amounts, but we're seeing that there are still gaps on that front.
Yeah. The resiliency of our industry, I think, continues, right? It just, the momentum there, every single time we see a headwind, we continue to push through, which is really, really cool to see that owner and from a development, I mean, new brands, new projects being announced. This is the space that we love to see, more and more, because there's more and more demand growing. Travelers continue to prioritize travel and the experience economy, which is great for us hoteliers. So we just need some more rooms here, which is obviously what you're tasked with, right, Genna? So, but I want to talk about Minor hotels. I know you talked about needing a little less education now, but educate us here on the sweet spot. I mean, Minor hotels brands spanning from select service all the way up to that ultra luxury segment. Ton of brands. I don't have time for all of them today, but maybe you could share some of your personal favorites, and within the Minor hotels portfolio, what makes those brands unique?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like you said, we now have 12 different brands, 4 of which were launched last year, right before I joined the company. But we have these 2 lineages, I think, within Minor hotels history, right? We have our roots, which come from Thailand, and Anantura and Avani are great examples of that. And then we have our European roots from acquisitions over the years. So we've got brands like Tivoli that came from Portugal, NH, which is a very established brand out of Madrid. The 4 that we launched last year offer really unique things that we never had before in our portfolio. So as we were looking to grow, we knew that was something we'd have to kind of have on our menu of options for potential hotels, because some of these brands don't work in every asset type and not every market. Though most of our brands have a lot of flexibility to be able to grow into different asset types. But I guess my favorite, and I'm really excited about the Wolseley hotel brand we launched last year. So Minor International owns, which of course Minor Hotels Resorts is a part of, owns Wolseley Hospitality Group out of London. And there's a really beautiful institutional restaurant called the Wolseley that's very famous. If you ask anybody from London, they definitely know the Wolseley. In fact, most people I know that just travel to London know the Wolseley.
Yeah.
So we own that company and decided to take that brand into the hotel space, which is, interesting because it's a restaurant moving into the hotel world. And our first one will open in New York next year. But it's been really fast. I think it's really fascinating. There's a lot of membership club opportunities with that one. And so that's kind of a new trend we're starting to see in the luxury space.
Yeah. It's got to be great to be able to have that breadth and spectrum of property or investment type for an owner to come in and say, this is maybe the market that I'm interested in and pursuing, and then figuring out and kind of curating and tailoring what asset, what brand is going to fit best there. And, we talked about this a little at NYU, but I think, again, your job is so fascinating. You have this well-established, extremely popular worldwide brand, and here you are tasked with bringing it into the North American market, right? I'm sure there's a lot of envious developers out there. What has been kind of, and really you only get to launch a brand like this into a new market only once. So what has been kind of your approach, Jen? I'd love to get kind of the background on what's been your approach and what kind of feedback you've been initially hearing. Have owners been kind of waiting for this, to arrive here? And what are you hearing from owners right now?
Yeah. It's a tale of two stories, as they say, right? Yeah. So in the luxury space, there's so much excitement. We're very established. People in that space know us and want to be the first to help us develop here. So that's where we've seen the vast majority of our interest. Now, when you shift to looking at some of the upper upscale through the select service brands that we now also offer franchise, which I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but it is a large component of those properties. Those segments are operated by third parties and franchised. So being that we're newer into that space, that's where the challenge has been. But yeah, in terms of, the hardest thing I have to tackle every day is where do I spend my time, right? Because there's constantly deals coming my way. We have to be quite strategic and mindful about, what has the most likelihood of being the best representation of our brand in our target markets. So early on when I started, in I think the first 4 weeks of me taking the role, I had developed a pretty cohesive development strategy of where we wanted to spend that time. And where that is really, any of the top, let's call it 20 markets in the US that have international demand. So we have top markets that don't have as much international demand. And we'll look at those, but we just think that our value is going to come from driving international business into these hotels. And then totally opposite from that, with Anantara, our wellness, upper luxury experiential brand, we are really excited about finding deals in kind of everywhere else except for those urban markets, right? So, hard to get to places. I last week I was driving through Utah and Colorado, 6 hours in between each of them. So, just to give you a little flavor, we were looking at a couple different opportunities in those states. Hudson Valley is somewhere we want to be, Montana, Wyoming. So, it's a little bifurcated, our approach to our various brands, but we're trying to be very diligent and strategic about it so we don't get distracted by things that aren't going to help us grow here. Because once we have good examples, we really believe the first few have to be really good. Once we have those, we'll be able to drive further growth at a more quick pace.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, what you were talking about, how best to spend your time, I think that's a challenge that hoteliers have had, since the dawn of this industry. But it's very exciting and very cool to hear those different approaches because, you have the privilege of having that background, of having that history and culture already built over in another market, bringing that here, but you also have the exciting new flavor of providing something new, maybe in some very experiential markets right now, which experiential travel is just absolutely exploding, another traveler trend right now. And you already have some several success stories we touched on at NYU. Let's dive a little deeper into some of those projects, Genna.
Yeah, so we've got, I guess our next one that I've already kind of spilled the beans on it, but the releases are already out there. But the first Wolseley in the world will be opening next year in New York, in the former Lambs Club property. And I think it's just such a fantastic market to open the first Wolseley hotel. Theoretically, it could have been in London, and hopefully we do have one in London soon. But it's a very special, cherished brand, and it's not The one thing I also just want to spend a moment on, even though it's luxury and it's this very quintessential British kind of formal service style, it's egalitarian at its roots. It's really meant for everybody. So you could walk into the Wolseley in London and see celebrities next to politicians, and you're Joe Schmo walking in off the street. You don't need a reservation. And so I think it's a really beautiful evolution of the history of that brand. And I'm so excited for it to land in New York.
So we can announce right now in 2027, the sweet spot will be on site. We can do a nice little episode up there.
Hopefully next conference in New York, we'll be able to do it there.
All right.
Yes. And then actually, I guess the next one that'll open in 2029 is Anatura Turks and Caicos, which is a 100% residential hotel, so a condo hotel. Really, really beautiful resort, heavy wellness. You'll find with Anantara's, we really lean into the wellness longevity space. And so we pride ourselves on always being at the forefront of the latest wellness, the direction wellness is going. And so longevity, for example, right now is very important to us. And we're seeing that bleed into the residential space. So, just the way that's getting threaded into the residential experience, into the hotel guest experience is very fascinating to watch. And then in 2030, we'll also have another Anantara in Miami, very close to Design District. It's kind of at the epicenter of where Design District, Edgewater, and Midtown all meet. The views from the hotel will be incredible. There'll be a helipad, a 30,000 square foot spa, and then a mix of hotel rooms, residences that people are living in, and then also residences that can get rented out to hotel guests as well. So we are super excited. I think having these 3 hotels in these 3 markets, right? We've covered New York, where we already have a hotel, by the way, the NH Collection, Madison Avenue. We've had there for a few years, which we actually own. And then, Miami, which is a key market, obviously very heavy international demand, but just if you had to tell me to pick one urban market to put in on Antura, that would be it. And then Turks and Caicos is such an important market for U.S. leisure travel. So these couldn't have been better markets for us to be entering and launching into that region.
Congratulations. What a strong pipeline and really cool projects you're working on. Excited to kind of see those and the announcements as they start to roll in and the pictures. Those views that you're talking about. But I think, the Turks and Caicos property is something we've been talking about on the podcast. That Kala region is also booming right now. So, it's not just, I think sometimes when we say, obviously bringing into the North American market, we tend to go a little bit more domestic. But to expand that into Kala, I think is going to be absolutely critical because you're right. So much of that U.S. domestic travel is now spending, time and money in those areas and looking a little bit more towards that for their experiences. So exciting all around. And of course, we love, we're based here in Florida, so we'd love a new project. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on that Miami project that you have. But this is, speaking of Miami, this is our independent hotel show series. Talk to us, why you feel some of the minor hotel brands fit within this independent and lifestyle category, and what advantages do you see independent hotels or even, experiential brands and lifestyle brands have in today's hospitality landscape?
Yeah, well, I'll answer that last question first.
Sure.
You don't have that experiential. You think that's table stakes today. So I believe we're only going to see that become more and more important as the years go on, because if you look at the consumer data of what the younger demographics, where they're spending their money, it's on experiences. It's no longer on goods. So having these really cool, unique experiences that they can travel and receive is going to be critical. In terms of what we have to offer for independent, hoteliers, keep in mind, this is our roots, right? We started, our company was founded by Bill Heineke, who fun fact, and I can't remember if I've already told you this, but the reason we're called Minor is that he went to go start his business at a very young age of 17. And when he was getting his business license, they said, sorry, but you need an adult to sign with you because you're a minor. So he's really one of those serial entrepreneurs, wicked smart, wicked great at launching businesses. But he was an independent hotelier. That's how he got his start. So, he's still driving a lot of the vision of the company. And I could tell you, coming from a larger brand company into this environment, it is incredibly entrepreneurial. And because we also own hotels, but also operate for a lot of our owners, we truly believe we have this hotelier mindset. We're more of an operator than we are a brand at this moment, and so I think that could help lend itself to independent owners who are looking for a little bit of support. We're here to lean in as much as they want and as little as they want. But there's benefits to it, right? We can help save on OTA costs. We can help save on purchasing. We've got great technology to help with forecasting and revenue management and so on. So there's definitely places to tap in. And I think particularly now more than ever with our 2 collection brands that we launched last year. So I started telling you this, but I didn't finish telling you the brands that we launched. But 2 of them that we launched last year are collections. One is Minor Reserve Collection, which is in the luxury space, and then Colbert Collection, which is more upper upscale, maybe entry luxury. And those are just they're primed for independent hotels, right? That's why they were launched, to be able to keep the heritage and the name of an independent hotel, play off of it, but then get all the back support, all the things behind the scenes that consumers will really never see, but it'll help make operations much more efficient and smooth. And so we think that's where there's a lot of opportunity, and we're priding ourselves on that. We're here to be a partner and not a brand that's telling you have to do it this way. So that's where we're really thinking this is the opportunity for us in that space.
Well, it says a lot that to have 2 collection brands dedicated to that space, it really shows the investment in the future of these kind of independently run or branded properties, and see the opportunity there. Because again, looking at, you mentioned the lens and view challenges about independent hotelier and brand is very different from those big brands that have the scale to kind of combat those challenges a little bit more efficiently. So, independent hotels always, we always talk about on this series specifically, are looking for any edge or opportunity to differentiate themselves to the traveler, because they are really first in line to present a one-of-a-kind experience, if you think about it. One of those places is F&B, a trend that obviously Minor Hotels has taken and ran with, especially with, converting a F&B brand to hospitality brand. How have you leveraged the F&B theme with potential owners and when you're having these conversations with investors as you look to bring Minor Hotels to North America?
Yeah. So, well, first we have when I was doing my onboarding in Madrid and Amsterdam, I toured our Anantara in Amsterdam, and they had a couple months before, they had just concluded a chef series where they brought, I believe, 20 or 30 Michelin-rated chefs under their roof and had a food festival, which I've never seen that. Like, how amazing to bring. I didn't know that many Michelin chefs would be side by side cooking for each other, right? But it's a really special thing, and I think that shows you that Minor is very credible in this super experiential, high end F&B space. Separate to that, so we have the talent in-house. Separate from that, when you look at our brands and the way our Colbert brand, for example, our Colbert, I don't even want to call it a brand because it's a collection. It's not really a brand. the way we thread food and beverage into the guest experience, right? So each hotel is completely unique within the collection. We don't want any two to really look alike, to be honest with you. But as part of the one ritual that you can count on as a guest at every Colbert is a food and beverage driven experience. So whether that's a bespoke cocktail that's mixed for you right as you enter the door, or maybe, after you've checked in and you're in your room, a bell cart is a food and beverage bell cart of sorts is delivering a special experience to your door. Something that ties back to the identity that the hotel has, but is very curated and special, right? Not something that's like here's the chocolate chip cookies we made today. No,
Right.
we want something really beautiful, thoughtful, creative, and that shows the craft in it. That either ties to the experience or the identity of the hotel.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And those little things go a very long way.
100%. And those are the little things that add up in the independent hotelier's world that you can have the edge, right? And, there's a whole now space with food tourism. I mean, it's got a name for it now. That's how large this trend is. And, hoteliers are looking at F&B very, very differently than they did 5-10 years ago. It was a place where they started to look and say, where can we cut costs? Where can we make efficiencies? Now the brands that I think are doing it right are leaning into it. They're seeing it as a part of their guest experience, and also a huge opportunity for their local markets too. I think people, in locally have looked through a different lens at what a hotel F&B experience can be. And when someone comes to town, they might not be going to that restaurant. They might be going to a hotel or a resort and having that experience there. So very
Right.
interested to see. Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but I just
please.
want to say I was recently having the conversation because when I started in the industry, we would joke you could like blow a cannon through a hotel restaurant. Nobody wanted to go to a hotel restaurant. Back in the day, they were cool, and it was like, oh, I'm staying at this hotel, meet me at the restaurant. But for a while, you didn't want to go to a hotel restaurant. It was vanilla. It was boring. It had no identity. It was just an extension. It was just a restaurant within a hotel. Now it's such an important driver of bringing people to that hotel, whether local or visiting from out of town. And so there's such an opportunity. And I look back at the time that those hotel restaurants were not attractive. And now I'm like, no, it's such a beautiful component to an experience. And I've seen really amazing destination hotels that are operated by the operators, but have a totally unique identity that's very strong and compatible with the hotel, but not homogenous with the hotel.
Absolutely. It's very, very cool to see that evolution. And I think it's only, again, as the trend continues to grow, I think it's only going to get stronger. You're going to see more emphasis on that F&B experience. And I personally can't wait because I love those types of experiences to kind of see that evolve. And we're going to learn a little bit about maybe some of your favorite F&B experiences within the portfolio here. So let's do my favorite part of the episode, some rapid fire to get to know you, Genna, and the Minor Hotel portfolio a little bit better. Let's start with you talked about maybe future favorite views at your property, but right now, what is the one of the favorite views at your properties in the portfolio?
So when I was and now you're trying to do rapid fire, but of course I'll just
No, not at all, please.
the Avani in Amsterdam. I had the opportunity during my onboarding with Minor to go to Amsterdam for a few days because we have a ton of hotels in Amsterdam. And I got to stay there, and I woke up, I think it was a Sunday morning, and I had one of the upper level rooms and floor to ceiling windows. And I watched the city wake up. It was so cool to see the sunrise from my room, but also the canals were coming to life. People were in boats, and I had this cup of coffee, and they had a great lounge chair. And it's not a fancy hotel, right? It's an approachable lifestyle hotel. But it was so beautiful. I had this like Minor magazine I was reading, and I read the whole thing. It was so lovely. And I'm actually taking my daughter there in 2 weeks because I loved it so much.
Very cool. Yeah, and she'll get to have that view of the property as well. What about favorite fact, a fun fact about one of the properties?
Yeah. Okay, so one of our new Colbert collections that I believe is open now in Florence, it's called Porto Rossa, which it translates to Red Door. And it is actually one of the um, oldest, it might have been the first hotel actually in Italy and one of the first hotels in Europe. So it's just so funny because here we call our historic hotels 200 years old, and here we have like an 800-year-old hotel. So I think I don't think I could top that.
Yeah, that puts it in perspective. Favorite signature dish? We talked about F&B experiences at one of the properties.
Yeah. I know I'm talking a lot about Amsterdam, but it obviously left an impression on me. But at
Sure.
the Tivoli, which is one of our entry luxury brands, very well established in Europe, um, they really pride themselves on food and wine. And so culinary is a huge component of that experience. So I get to eat at the restaurant in the Tivoli called Umber. And they really try to weave in creativity and art into the overall experience. And so they took inspiration from Rembrandt. And so umber is one of the 12 colors of Rembrandt's palette. And so they had a beautiful way of weaving that into the food, the color of the food, the color of the menu, the names of the menu items. And it was just a beautiful, and you could watch the chef finish the food right at the entrance. And it was remarkable. It's also on the canal. It was an evening, candlelit room. It was beautiful.
Man, the marketing team for some of these properties, I'm sure, has no shortage of content and storytelling. I mean, this is every hotel marketer's dream. What about favorite guest experience or amenities at one of your properties?
Yeah. That's a good question. Okay. The also an Avani in Madrid. So when I had wrapped up, I had trained in Madrid. I went to Amsterdam for a weekend, came back to Madrid to kind of give everybody my 2 cents of how the project or how the onboarding went. And I was only there for 1 or 2 nights. I was so tired. I had been gone for like 2 weeks. I missed my kids. But I came back, and the Avani in Madrid, as my welcome amenity, had a smoothie set up. And I had never seen this. And I don't even know if I'll ever see this again. But they had a little tiny, I think it's called like a bullet blender,
Right.
that I could blend in my room. They had the most beautiful, I don't even know what fruit it was, but it was sweet. It was delicious. They had a variety of milks next to it that I could mix with the fruit. And then, of course, a little ice bucket and some honey. And it was just everything that I needed. I was so tired from being on the road, and to come back and have this really like cool, healthy, nutritious. It was like they were reading my mind of what I needed. And I've been in a lot of amazing hotels. And again, Avani's not a luxury brand,
Yeah.
but they totally nailed it. And then about an hour later, because I had checked in fairly late in the day, they showed up at my door with this beautiful wind down tea setup. And it was, tea can be hit or miss. It
Yeah.
was so beautifully floral and delicious. And I'm not even a tea drinker, and I loved every moment of it. And they had the most perfect cookie to compliment it.
Wow. It's brilliant, by the way, that smoothie, because it makes you a part of the process. It makes you feel a part of the experience. I'm sure a ton of people are sharing that on social media. They're talking about it. I mean, how easy could it have been to just deliver a smoothie, but for you to kind of be a part of that experience, I think makes it a little bit more special. Very, very cool. I've never heard that either. Very cool. And then last but not least, favorite piece of artwork at one of your properties?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Sure, I'm
I'm
sure. Yeah.
coming back to the fact that we have an NH hotel in Amsterdam called the Schiller, with tons of authentic Danish artwork. But I've also heard that the Tivoli Kopke Porto Gaia has a lot of remarkable pieces. In fact, they have over 70 pieces of authentic art. One of my favorite artists is a Spanish artist, Miro, and his works are there. So I haven't seen it in real life, but that's on my bucket list.
Well, I'll tell you, this was probably the most internationally friendly rapid fire that we've had here when asking these questions. You took us to Madrid, Amsterdam, Italy, all over the place. So we'll definitely, I can feel the hoteliers now doing some research on these hotels and planning their vacations. Let's shift to the independent hotel show. It's happening September 16th, 17th in Miami Beach. And remember, Sweet Spot listeners, don't forget to use promo code Ryan26 for a complimentary registration. Genna and I would love to see you there. Genna, you recently joined the show's advisory board. Congratulations on that. What inspired you to get involved with this event, and how do you see it supporting independent hoteliers?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. And I'm really flattered to be on the advisory board. When we started when I was working through our development strategy, as part of that, we were talking about the various conferences we wanted to attend. And we really think that we're different from a lot of the big players that are already here, right? We're trying to not be aligned with them, but a totally different offering. And so for us, it was really important that we find these, independent hoteliers, boutique hoteliers, that again are looking for somebody to help support them and maybe make their lives a little bit easier, but not be, always watching over their shoulder. And so for us, this was perfect. I actually hadn't come across it until they reached out to me, and it came about 48 hours after we had said we need to find a show or a conference that has specifically this, and it just fell into our lap. And so it was very serendipitous, and we're very excited. In fact, I hope we can continue to attend, and I'll be bringing my colleague from Mexico actually to help run the process with us while we're there. So we're excited. I also think that we could learn a lot of what independent hoteliers need and their challenges are. And be able to help them out on that.
Yeah, it's a very, very unique event. I've had the privilege of, being to the show since its inception a few years back. So much learning. There is something special when you put a group of independent hoteliers together in a room. The networking that goes down, it really is unlike any other event I've been to. So again, hope you will join Genna and I in Miami Beach in September. We hope to see you there. As we wrap up today, we got a couple more minutes. What is your vision for the future of minor hotels in North America, Genna?
Yes. Listen, we don't want to be as big as everybody else that's here, but we want to have a really good foothold. I don't think I mentioned this, but we have a little over 600 hotels worldwide, including our pipeline, and we're really everywhere except for North America. And so it just feels like the right progression of where we even have hotels in South America and in Mexico, right? So we're really kind of closing in from all directions. And so we just want to have good hotels here, good representation. Fun fact, British and U.S. travelers make up the majority of Anantara guests worldwide, even though we have no Anantaras here in the U.S. So nor in England. So people want it, and I think once they're here, they will absolutely come. So we're excited. We want a good representation of hotels. Hopefully, that's somewhere around 20 to 30 hotels in the coming years.
Well, you're off to a super strong start. Congratulations again, Genna. It's exciting to be here, kind of at the starting line of this this minor hotels journey in North America. It will soon follow suit, like the rest of your brand is. So we're excited to watch that unfold here in the upcoming years. Genna, thank you so much. We know you're busy. You mentioned it before. We appreciate you taking your time, spending some time with us and talking about minor hotels. And in the Independent Hotel Show, again, we're excited that we'll both be attending there in Miami, and hope you will too. So Genna, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
All right. And we'll talk to you next time on The Sweet Spot. Thank you for listening.